Hello, RotoBallers. With 4 teams on a bye here in week number 11, finding a running back to trust can be hard. After all, we are without Jonathan Taylor, Alvin Kamara, Ramondre Stevenson, and Bijan Robinson. So what can we do? Well, let's start with your week 11 must-start and must-sit players at the running back position. Starting with Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars as they take on the Tennessee Titans. Etienne, he needs more love than he has been getting this season so far. He is quietly putting together an all-pro type season. Despite last week's poor performance by the Jacksonville Jaguars, the only running backs this season to put together more than 4 20-plus fantasy performances have been Christian McCaffrey and Travis Etienne. His 6.4 fantasy points last week was only the second time this season in which he has been held to under 10 fantasy points. As for the Titans, receiving backs have been giving them problems as of late. Last week, Rachaad White had 17 fantasy points thanks to 47 receiving yards and 51 rushing yards. The previous week, the duo of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren combined for 27 fantasy points. Fantasy managers should expect a nice bounce back here in week number 11. James Conner versus the Houston Texans is another must start. The Texans' run defense, while it has improved throughout the season, you can still run on them. Joe Mixon picked up 46 yards rushing last week on just 11 carries. Now Conner, in his first game back off the IR, carried the ball 16 times for 73 yards against the Falcons team that was allowing the third fewest fantasy points to the running back position this season. While Conner never hit pay dirt, the touches, they look promising, and he's going to be a high volume RB2 the rest of the season there, especially when he's getting an 84% rush share and 4 red zone carries. Now all we need is the Cardinals to stop pissing around and give James Conner the ball on the goal line instead of Clayton Tune. Now Brian Robinson Jr. versus the New York Jets is another must start this week. Look, this Giants team, they are bad. They can't score, which means after Sam Howell is done with him, it's going to be Brian Robinson's turn to pile on the fantasy points. Robinson, to his credit, is coming off a 6-catch, 119-yard performance against the Seahawks, in which he also added, about 38 yards rushing on just 8 carries. New York, they are allowing 23.06 fantasy points per game to backs this season. And if Robinson is going to get involved in this passing game, I don't see how you cannot start him this week. Robinson is tied with Rachaad White with 6 receptions or more for 20-plus yards. So Robinson has been a big play threat out of the backfield for this Commanders team. Fun fact, Brian Robinson is the only player to lead his position in fantasy scoring multiple times, doing it way back in week 2 as well. Now you're going to sit Isaiah Pacheco this week, and this one's tough for me. He's always a tough player for me to sit, but the numbers suggest doing so. Philadelphia is allowing just 14.18 fantasy points per game to the running back position, which is the lowest in the league. They are also allowing 47.53 fantasy points per game to wide receivers, which is the most in the league. So you have to figure that Kansas City, they are going to throw the ball around the field. Now let's take a look deeper at those rushing numbers. Backs have ran for just 482 yards and 2 touchdowns against this Eagles team. Only the Bucs and the Falcons have allowed fewer rushing scores, and no team has allowed less yardage. Even in the passing game, the Eagles have allowed just 274 yards. Now, it is worth noting that Pacheco averaged 5.1 yards per carry in that Super Bowl against the Eagles, but that was an Eagles team that was without a Jalen Carter plug in the middle. Read between the lines. Start Rashee Rice, not Isaiah Pacheco. Now, Joe Mixon is another sit this week for me against the Baltimore Ravens team that is entering week number 11 as the 12th ranked team in fantasy against the running back position, allowing just 18.34 fantasy points per game. Then again, they did allow Jerome Ford to rush for 107 yards on 17 carries. Now, look for the Ravens to clean that up just a little bit this week. The last time the Ravens and Bengals met, Baltimore held Mixon to just 56 yards on the ground and 17 yards passing on 3 receptions. What's hard to believe that in 9 games, Mixon has yet to crack 100 yards rushing. Now, luckily for fantasy managers, he's had at least 3 targets in every game but 2. With T. Higgins likely out again this week, Burrow and the Bengals, they need Mixon. And I'm not sure that he can do more than what we've already seen. And my last sit this week is Kenneth Walker versus the Los Angeles Rams. Walker has been struggling running the ball this season. Luckily, earlier on in the season, he was able to get into the end zone there, running for 6 touchdowns in the first 5 games. In the last 4 games, he has 0 rushing touchdowns, but he did have that 64-yard catch and run touchdown last week. Walker has just 3 games this season in which he has run for more than 70 yards after finishing 2022's regular season with 3 straight 100-yard games. Los Angeles, they were on a bye last week, but their defense has been solid all season, limiting opposing backs to just 17.98 fantasy points per contest, which is the 9th fewest. So that's another reason why I am sitting Kenneth Walker this week. Once again, a friendly reminder that this video is being recorded on Monday, so that plenty can still happen between now and Sunday's kickoff. So make sure you check out RotoBaller.com and the RotoBaller Discord channel for all the latest fantasy football news. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to hit that like and subscribe to the RotoBaller YouTube channel for plenty more great fantasy football analysis.